What happens when two powerful women, one of the most outspoken voices in American daytime television and one of the most controversial royals in modern history, sit across the same table? The answer: sparks, silence, and a cultural storm no one saw coming. It started like any other segment on The View. The cameras rolled, the audience cheered, and Meghan Markle entered with her signature grace, an ivory dress, polished smile, the picture of calm. Across from her sat Joy Behar, sharp-tongued and unflinching, ready with the questions daytime TV audiences live for. At first, it was polite, even warm. A little laughter, some small talk about family and California sunshine. But then the tone shifted. Joy's questions turned pointed, Meghan's answers became guarded, and suddenly the air in the studio thickened. What was supposed to be just another celebrity interview began to feel like a duel. By the time it reached its breaking point, viewers weren't just watching an interview, they were witnessing a cultural clash. Meghan fought to defend her identity and worth, while Joy pressed with relentless skepticism. And in front of millions, the tension boiled over into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. So, what really happened that day? Let's break down how a cordial chat became a cultural earthquake. Daytime television has always thrived on a delicate balance. On one side, warmth, humor, and light-hearted conversation designed to keep viewers company during their late mornings. On the other, the undeniable lure of controversy, the kind of sharp exchange that makes audiences sit up straighter and grab their phones to text a friend. It's a balancing act that The View has perfected for decades. And on this particular morning, with Meghan Markle walking onto that set, the balance was destined to tip. The studio gleamed like a stage set for a national debate. Brass accents caught the light, cameras panned across a buzzing audience, and Whoopi Goldberg, the steady anchor, set the tone with her signature charm. Meghan entered gracefully, her posture rehearsed but her smile genuine enough to win polite applause. For a moment, everything seemed calm. But as any political observer will tell you, calm in front of cameras is often just the surface. The real tension hums underneath. Joy Behar, known for her sharp wit and unapologetic questioning, wasted no time. Her opening comments carried that distinct edge, part humor, part challenge, that longtime viewers recognized immediately. It wasn't hostility, not yet, but it was a signal. This conversation would not be soft. At first, the questions were familiar. How was California life treating Meghan? How were her projects shaping up? The type of inquiries that allow a guest to settle in, to establish narrative control. Meghan's answers were polished, careful, even a little political themselves. She spoke about family, community, and meaningful work, projecting the image of a woman rebuilding life on her own terms. But Joy tilted her head and pressed further. Was life in America easier simply because the press was kinder here than in the United Kingdom? A simple question on the surface, but beneath it lay the politics of belonging, of identity, of acceptance. For a woman who had lived through relentless tabloid wars overseas, the subtext was impossible to ignore. In that instant, the studio's energy shifted. Audience members leaned in. The silence grew heavier. Whoopi interjected with humor, trying to diffuse, but the spark had already caught. The interview had moved from small talk into something else, something closer to a cross-examination. Like any political debate, this was no longer about polite conversation. It was about power, narrative, and who would control the story once the cameras stopped rolling. And as the first segment closed, one thing became clear: this wasn't going to be just another celebrity interview. It was setting the stage for one of the most heated cultural clashes daytime TV had ever witnessed. Every political clash, whether in Congress, in the media, or at a dinner table, begins with a single exchange that shifts the room. On this morning, that moment came when Joy Behar leaned in, her expression half curious, half challenging, and asked Meghan Markle a question that cut past the pleasantries. Was America easier because the press here was friendlier than in the UK? It wasn't just a question about geography. It was a question about legitimacy. About whether Meghan's move to California was truly a choice or an escape. And in American culture, where the conversation about fairness, belonging, and representation runs deep, that question carried political weight. Meghan's reply was smooth, but firm. She made it clear that California was not a consolation prize, but a deliberate decision for her family's health and future. Her words carried that unmistakable cadence of someone who has learned to defend their choices in public space. Yet Joy wasn't satisfied. She sharpened the angle, hinting at rumors of Harry's travel schedule, asking whether the optics pointed to cracks in the marriage. The studio shifted again. Audience members murmured. Whoopi raised her hand like a crossing guard, trying to redirect traffic before it turned into a pile-up. But the sparks had already begun to fly. In many ways, the moment mirrored American politics itself, one side pressing relentlessly for accountability, the other holding firm on the right to control their own story. Meghan emphasized that rumors are just noise unless people give them oxygen. Joy, meanwhile, pressed the issue with the persistence of a prosecutor. This wasn't tabloid gossip anymore. It was a broader commentary on how public figures, especially women, are held to standards that border on impossible. Meghan spoke of boundaries, of protecting her children from the glare of fame. Joy countered with the notion of curation, suggesting Meghan's privacy was carefully staged. Both points resonated with different corners of the audience, reflecting the divided lens through which American viewers often see public life. By now, the interview had left the territory of light entertainment. It had become something heavier, more political in tone. Meghan's words about narrative control sounded less like a celebrity soundbite, and more like a statement on media power and cultural survival. Joy's sharp persistence echoed the voice of skeptics everywhere, challenging the idea that public life can ever be lived on one's own terms. The sparks weren't yet afire, but they were visible, undeniable, and growing stronger by the minute. The stage was no longer a talk show table, it had become an arena. And everyone watching knew the real confrontation was just beginning. Every heated exchange has a line. Once it's crossed, there's no way back to politeness. On this day, that line came sharply into focus when Joy Behar moved past questions of family life and press coverage, and instead zeroed in on Meghan Markle's credibility. The audience felt the tension tighten like a rope. Joy, with her trademark bluntness, suggested that Meghan's career and current platform existed because of her ties to royalty, that without her husband's last name, she might not have the spotlight she now commands. It was a statement that cut deeper than any question. It was less inquiry, more indictment. For Meghan, this wasn't just a challenge to her narrative. It was a challenge to her identity. And in a nation where debates about women's independence, power, and equity dominate headlines, her response carried the weight of something larger than celebrity gossip. She reminded the audience, calmly but firmly, that men negotiate for value every day without criticism, yet when a woman does the same, it is too often framed as greed or opportunism. The crowd reacted instantly. Some clapped in support, others gasped at the confrontation unfolding live. What had started as an interview now resembled a televised crossfire. Two strong personalities locked in a battle over who would define the story. Then came the breaking point. Joy pushed harder, framing Meghan as someone lecturing from privilege, someone out of touch with ordinary people. The words landed like a political attack ad, short, sharp, and crafted to sting. And for the first time, Meghan's composure cracked. Her voice trembled. Her eyes glistened. The polished calm she had carried since the beginning began to slip. In that moment, the political tone of the clash became unavoidable. This wasn't just celebrity versus journalist. It was a proxy war for larger cultural arguments. Women versus double standards, public service versus private survival, authenticity versus performance. Whoopi Goldberg, sensing the damage, tried to step in, her voice firm but gentle, reminding everyone that tough questions should not cross into cruelty. But the break had already happened. The studio had shifted from tension to something raw, something unsettled. And as Meghan dabbed her eyes with a tissue, it became clear, the interview was no longer about headlines or ratings. It was about dignity. About whether a woman could stand in her truth, even when the room demanded she justify her existence. The cameras kept rolling. The audience sat in silence, caught between sympathy and spectacle. The clash had crossed the line, and the storm was only just beginning. Television thrives on conflict, but there's a fine line between tough journalism and spectacle. On this day, The View crossed that line. After Meghan Markle's composure cracked, Joy Behar kept pressing, this time, framing Meghan as someone out of touch, living in luxury while lecturing ordinary people. The remark landed like a gavel strike, more verdict than question. The studio froze. For a long moment, the audience didn't know whether to gasp or clap. Some cheered Joy's bluntness, others muttered in disapproval. But the weight of the words hung in the air, undeniable. Meghan's lips trembled, her voice thin but steady as she reminded everyone that survival is not a performance, and respect should never be optional. It was no longer a celebrity interview. It was a cultural confrontation about dignity, fairness, and the politics of power. Whoopi Goldberg quickly intervened, her voice rising above the noise. "That's enough," she said firmly, drawing a clear boundary. It was a rare live moment where the host became referee, protecting both the guest and the integrity of the platform. But the damage was done. Meghan wiped away tears, looked across the table, and declared she deserved better. The applause that followed wasn't just for her words, it was for her decision to stand tall in a space that suddenly felt hostile. Then came the moment no producer wants but every viewer remembers. Meghan unclipped her microphone. She placed it on the table with a deliberate calm that cut deeper than any outburst. "I'm not here to be liked by everyone," she said, "but I am here to be respected." And with that, she rose from her chair and walked off the set. The reaction was immediate. Some in the audience stood, clapping in support. Others booed under their breath. Millions watching at home saw a guest exit live television in tears, a rare rupture in the polished world of daytime talk. Joy shifted uneasily, offering a subdued statement that she only asked questions people wanted answered. But Whoopi wasn't having it. She turned to the camera, her voice steady, apologizing to viewers and to Meghan. "Tough questions don't mean cruel ones. And we all need that reminder." In the political landscape of American media, moments like this linger. They fuel debates about the role of journalism, the limits of civility, and the double standards that women, especially women of color, face under public scrutiny. Meghan's walkout was more than a dramatic exit. It was a statement. A refusal to play by rules that demanded pain for ratings. Daytime television had just witnessed its cultural earthquake. And nothing about The View, or Meghan Markle's relationship with the press, would ever look the same again. When Meghan Markle walked out of The View, the cameras caught more than just a guest leaving a set. They captured the kind of rupture that daytime television rarely admits, a conversation too raw, too personal, too political to be wrapped up neatly before commercial break. Within hours, the clip spread across social media. Headlines framed it as the interview that broke daytime TV, and the public debate split along familiar lines. Some viewers rallied behind Meghan, praising her for refusing to tolerate disrespect and for standing firm in the face of what felt like a one-sided interrogation. Others defended Joy Behar, arguing that journalists and hosts have the duty to ask uncomfortable questions, even if it risks upsetting the guest. But beneath the noise was something deeper, a reflection of America's own cultural divides. The clash wasn't just about Meghan or Joy. It was about who gets to control a narrative, who defines respect, and how women in the public eye are judged when they assert their worth. In many ways, it echoed the political conversations dominating Washington and living rooms alike. Accountability versus compassion, scrutiny versus dignity, freedom of speech versus responsibility. For Meghan, the walkout symbolized a refusal to let her identity be reduced to headlines or royal gossip. For Joy, it was a test of how far sharp commentary could go before crossing into cruelty. And for Whoopi Goldberg, who intervened to defend civility, it was a reminder that even in entertainment, there are boundaries worth protecting. The fallout extended beyond ratings. It raised bigger questions about the media's role in shaping public opinion, and about the balance between holding power to account and respecting personal boundaries. Commentators compared it to political hearings, where truth and spectacle often collide. Others pointed out the double standards, how a man negotiating for contracts is called powerful, while a woman doing the same is labeled opportunistic. In the end, this wasn't just a TV moment. It was a cultural earthquake. It revealed fault lines in how Americans see fame, gender, race, and power. And like any political clash that seizes the national spotlight, it will linger in debates, podcasts, and dinner conversations long after the cameras stop rolling. What began as an interview ended as a referendum on respect. And in that sense, Meghan's walkout wasn't a collapse, it was a statement. One that left daytime TV, and the people watching, with questions far bigger than the show itself. What started as a simple daytime interview ended in a moment that felt bigger than television. Meghan Markle walked out in tears, Joy Behar was left to answer for her words, and Whoopi Goldberg reminded everyone that tough questions should never become cruel ones. The clash wasn't just about a celebrity or a TV host, it became a mirror for our culture. Who controls the narrative? How much respect do we owe one another, even in the heat of debate? And what happens when public conversations push too far? These are the same questions that fuel politics, media, and everyday life in America. And this explosive exchange on The View proved once again that daytime TV is more than entertainment. It's a stage where our national arguments play out in real time. Whether you side with Meghan, with Joy, or simply believe both women showed the raw truth of being under spotlight, one thing is clear. This was not just another talk show episode. It was a cultural flashpoint, one that will be replayed, debated, and remembered for years to come. And that's where we leave today's story. The cameras may have cut to commercial, but the conversation